Is Travis. I am joined, as always, by my fantastic co-hosts Eric, Ryan, and James. I almost said Clark again, man. I just
Ooh.
replacing you in my head, I guess. I'm sorry,
Just start
James.
wearing a wig, Bones.
I mean,
Just
I
get a
mean,
wig.
yeah. She was more pleasant to look at. So
Shout out to Clark. We still miss
Yeah,
you. We still love you. It's been
yeah.
fantastic.
Apparently,
Oh,
I keep trying to put you back into the podcast.
that game came out too. Finally,
Marath-
didn't it? Was it a
Marathon.
demo or a trial? Yeah.
I think the trials started. I'll have
Yeah.
to talk to Clark. I don't know.
So that's pretty cool because we talked about it.
She doesn't do a whole lot on the development side. She's on the money side.
Yeah.
The
She
smart
does
just
number
she just
stuff.
tells developers no, and then watches them get angry because she didn't give them money. That's
the best job.
That's pretty accurate.
that's
actually.
Clark's job and joy.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, when you do what you love, you know what I mean?
Indeed.
It's
And
not really a job.
on the subject of doing what you love, we got a little bit something different tonight for you guys. I'm very, very excited about tonight's episode. It is going to be a little time consuming. And so, just so you are aware, we are going to be skipping our news segment to open up. We will be covering that again next week, but we're going to actually take a minute to dive straight into tonight's topic, which we talked a little bit about last week, but it's going to be the rationalization of villains and their motivations.
Yeah.
Now, we've all
Bad
chosen
guys.
one. Everybody kind of picked what we consider to be a little bit more of a lesser represented or an obscure villain. And I want to make sure and preface this at the beginning of the episode, guys.
I'll
This is,
obscure your villain.
yeah, this is an opinion piece. We're going to be doing our best to get our data as accurate as humanly possible, but at the end of the day, it will be an opinion piece. And so, if you hear one of these stories and you disagree or have additional information or something that we missed, please let us know. We'd love to be educated on this kind of thing. Give us the comment down below and let us know what you thought or what we missed.
And I'll argue
Um,
with you in the comment section. What's up?
He really will.
he will.
Gangsta.
He's super proud to be obstinate. But one thing we didn't discuss is who wants to go first. We have kind of an escalating tier of villains.
I'm gonna say Ryan or Eric goes first.
We're a little bit
No,
lower tier than you guys' choice, so
I don't feel like my villain's gonna encompass a large amount of time, but I think it's gonna be very controversial, as was the beginning of the show.
yeah, our pre-show
So-
with Eric's choice was
So
pretty
we should
in-depth.
definitely
It
save
was-
mine for a little
It was
bit.
just us trash talking Eric. For those of you that want to know, it was
Yes.
literally us just making fun of Eric and all of the choices that he makes.
Ooh,
Not just for villain, but life in general. His
that's fair.
his place
real
of
quick,
residency, career choices.
though, just so everybody knows, we did put the new logo. It's in the corner of the show right now. It's
Yeah.
also going to get loaded onto all our other stuff. So what we did was we put everybody seemed to like the heroes of the Nerdverse that we started doing originally.
Mhm.
That logo with the dragons and everything. So we just kind of incorporated our old logo with the show name that we use now. So hopefully people love it, and the merch will be up this Monday.
I know
we'll
it's-
probably look at doing some sort of giveaway because it's the brand new merch. I think anybody that shows up to the show next Thursday, we're going to do the giveaway during the show. And then we'll just kind of go from there. I don't know how we're going to give it out. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Interactions or something like that, but just be there and you'll know. It'll be fun.
It will be one of those situations, guys, where you must be present to win. So be sure and come in and watch the show. I'm a huge fan of our new merch. I'm not even gonna lie about that. I think
You have to be here live in one of our houses.
how creepy would that be? Just a shout from the
Ooh.
living room. I got it.
If someone knocks on my door, absolutely giving a shirt. You gotta
Yeah,
find me.
instantly for sure.
and then calling the
Eric-
police.
Yeah.
How did you find me?
So Eric handles almost all of our merch stuff. I don't actually have any merch here, but if I did, I might do the same thing where it's like, oh, hey, cool, here's your shirt, buddy. Please go away.
Eric's easy to find. He's in Canada. There's only like 30 people up there.
I'm like the third igloo on the right. That's
Yeah.
really what it is.
I'm,
All right,
I'm sandwiched between two log cabins. Couldn't afford a log cabin. Had to get an igloo.
right. I am. If y'all are going to give me the steering to open up, then I will open up.
Yeah.
Now, there was a whole bunch of options when it came to villains, guys. We've all chosen one that's kind of near and dear to us for our individual reasons. And mine is one of my very personal favorites. It is a villain with a genius level intellect. It is a villain that is the inheritor of one of the most profoundly narcissistic legacies that is seen anywhere in the setting. It is a villain that embodies pathological paranoia and hyper proficiency. And it is about a villain with a really neat goldfish. I am doing Xanathar from the Sword Coast Faerun setting in Dungeons and Dragons. So here's the breakdown for Xanathar, and then we're going to open it up so everybody can kind of poke and prod and ask questions. Xanathar is a criminal overlord stationed in a secret underground base, very Bond style, in one of the 3 largest city-states located in the Sword Coast of Faerun on Toril. Now, this one I chose, guys, because it's one of the most iconic D&D villains of all time. I'd put him probably top 10. He's no Strahd von Zordovich or a Sararak, but he is prominently featured in the new live interactive Journey Through Waterdeep stuff on the D&D on stage, and is a prominent villain that will be many players' first introduction to villains through stories like Dragon Heist or the Mad Mage's Dungeon. Really, anything centered in the Sword Coast will involve Xanathar in one way or another. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he's a mob boss, right? He runs a vast criminal organization that spreads throughout the Sword Coast that is centered around Waterdeep. It is involved predominantly in 4 main money-making schemes. This includes the smuggling of narcotics, blackmail and espionage, profiteering and protection rackets, and slavery and labor trade, amongst other things. Ooh, Travis got the first question. What you got? You're also muted, my man.
I am muted. I was muted. He's also part of a really in-depth pyramid scheme,
That is very, very true.
which is wild for...
Now, so far, what I've described could be just any goon that managed to get in charge. That's not the case with Xanathar. Xanathar is a beholder. Now, for those of you that don't know, a beholder is a giant reality warping alien eyeball covered in eye stalks with some incredible powers
and big old teeth.
and big old teeth. It's actually just one giant brain and digestive system. Like, that's basically the whole thing is. It's a giant floating eyeball with a whole lot of other eyeballs. Now, the fact he's a beholder is very, very key in what he does, because what I think is most interesting about this villain is not the fact that he's, this kingpin in Waterdeep, even though I think that's really interesting. It's him being a beholder has led to an interesting line of secession when it came to the criminal organization, because he's not an immortal being. In fact, he's not even the first Xanathar. He's the umpteenth one to inherit the title. And it's this self-sabotaging way that it happens. So beholders are created when another beholder dreams about beholders. That's literally the whole thing. When they dream, they warp reality and a new one is created. They are born with kind of the previous personality and memories of those that created it, sometimes in better ways, sometimes in worse ways. And in Xanathar's case, he constantly dreams up a new offspring, which, very Sith style, turns around, kills him, and takes over the kingdom. And so it's this line of self-assassination that leads this vast criminal organization. Now, our current one, who goes by the name of... goes by Xanathar, but he's been called Zushax, has a particular psychological anchor in the form of his pet goldfish, Silgar. Now, Silgar is not special. He's goldfish that Xanathar put in a 20-foot diameter tank filled with all manner of exotic plant life. And a huge portion of his organization's logistics, which, as you can imagine, are wide, varied, and very expertly cared for, a huge section of it is about making sure that if that goldfish dies, an identical one is put back in the tank before Xanathar notices. Because if his goldfish dies, there's a pretty good chance he destroys a large portion of the Sword Coast. Eric, what you got?
I was actually just about to ask about how he deals with the goldfish when it dies because they don't last very long.
Yeah.
I mean, I flushed mine down the toilet, so I'm not sure as to what other people usually do with
Oh,
them.
there is a
Um,
huge
but-
section of of the guild that is dedicated to making sure he doesn't know that goldfish died, to the point where they have secret hatcheries where they selectively breed to make sure they're identical.
With his intelligence level, though, I mean, he's got to realize it dies.
So that's the dichotomy of the character. Now, he is extremely intelligent. That is true. And comes from a long line of extremely intelligent, dreaming eyeballs. However, he's also batshit crazy and completely mad. This goldfish is the entity that he trusts the most in the entire universe. It's the only one that he will talk to directly, that he'll whisper secret plans to, and that he goes to for advice. The cognitive dissonance of not having that goldfish be a perpetual factor in his life would destroy him, and so his madness doesn't allow him to notice small differences. Travis, what you got?
So just with the way that beholders, because they inherit a portion of their personality from the beholder that dreamed them, right?
Correct.
From that, what do they call it? A stalk cluster, I think is their term for.
Specifically,
Hardly matters.
yeah.
But do you think his level of paranoia is a genetic trait that's been passed down, and since each one has been selectively more paranoid, that's why Xanthar's on the verge of madness with paranoia?
So you would think
That's
so.
actually a beholder trait in general.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
it's just extreme
are
paranoia.
Genetically paranoid, megalomaniac, and
Yep.
solipsist to the maximum degree.
That is 100% accurate. They
Crazy.
both simultaneously believe that they should be revered, worshipped, and held on high, and so paranoid that they can't come out of the basement. The interesting part about the inherited aspect of that, to me, is that the two beholders that preceded Zushax into our current setting. Zushax is the current Xanathar as of 1492 DR. Izilktor and Zandulzrithral, the two that preceded him, actually both retired peacefully instead of being assassinated. They simply handed the kingdom over to the successor and left without being killed.
They were killed later.
Yeah, two of the only ones that in the entire line that's happened to, and I guarantee you they were killed later. There's no way that they're just hanging out in some farmhouse Thanos style out there.
Especially as beholders.
Indeed. Travis, what you got?
So beyond his like typical disposition, so is his disposition directly related to his motivation to be the underground mob boss of Waterdeep?
So that's where he gets his inheritance, and you're absolutely right. The continuing to develop this criminal organization with Xanathar's guild in Waterdeep is part of the inherited compulsion. Now, the current Xanathar, in my opinion, is doing some of the most fun ways to go about that, doing that, because he is. Let me bring up my papers here. He is in it for total information dominance. And the way he goes about it, I think, is absolutely fascinating. Now, something to realize, guys, is that in D&D, a beholder is an iconic boss because it's one of the most difficult to fight. They're insane. They have 11 eyes. Each of the different eyes has a different magical beam power that it can use at will, including shutting down magic, death rays, disintegration, sleep, domination. There's a whole host of them. But the Xanathar always stays in the shadows, behind the scenes, to the point where most of Xanathar's guild never actually even sees him. They interact with his lieutenants more commonly than the big boss, kind of like a Dawn in the Mafia, I would imagine. This particular one has pushed the information dominance to an extreme, seeding the city with, actually, I have their surveillance stuff pulled up right here, seeding the city with gazers. Now, a gazer is a type of daydream that a beholder can make. They're about the size of a thumb. They consist of a little bit of an eye stalk and an eyeball, and that's it. And they fly around. They're small enough to fly through keyholes in most doors, and they keep an eye all over everything around Waterdeep and the surrounding territory. Hundreds of them seeded and act as spy cameras and drones seeded throughout the entire city. As if that wasn't enough, we then get into the Panoptica station, which is within Xanathar's stronghold. Now, this is a weird one. This is kind of like a scrying pool in a place of arcane power. But he has 5 shield dwarves that have been psychically and surgically altered by one of his lieutenants named Nihilor to constantly be connected to all manner of scrying remotes and information gathering magic at all times. And they kind of do it Space Marine style, where they have the dwarves like half the brain is asleep while the other half is working, and then they trade places so that they never actually have to stop. It's driving the dwarves slowly mad, but they are very aware of everything that's going on. On top of this, he's got the 11 Eyes, which is a group of assassins. Pretty much what you would expect from any Dawn. Like, he's got 7 assassins that do assassination stuff. Bones, what you got?
So what we're getting at here is his motivation is he's a panic disorder that runs a crime syndicate.
That's exactly right.
Panic disorder that runs a crime syndicate.
100%. He's stuck in a loop of no end game, right? Like, there's no win condition. It's just continue to play. And that feeds into the paranoia in the extreme. And so his motivation is to keep going. And I think
he's
actually
avoided like the main good guys. Like, how is like the main heroes, especially because he's in Waterdeep, right? Isn't that what
He
you
is.
said?
He
How
is.
the hell has he avoided like their whole thing being decimated? Because anytime you read like other fantasy novels, like nothing ever sticks around that long. Like even like there's like a main villain like group that's the opposite of the Harpers in
The Zentara.
Forgotten Realms. Yeah. And even they get taken out for a long time and aren't around.
Well,
So
that
it's
comes down
kind of crazy how Xanathar has been around and still around for so long.
That comes down to a few key factors. And interestingly, to your point, the first Xanathar that was put in place in 1300s DR was put there by the Zentarum. He was a Zentarum agent. He turncoated and killed them all later, but the answer to your question is that he doesn't. It is a decentralized criminal network that constantly regrows, and there's always another Xanathar because Xanathars are always dreaming about themselves because they're narcissists. And so to answer your question is they don't. He gets killed by heroes all the time. And his organization has taken major hits a lot, but somebody's always there to come back through. The most recent one has stayed in power predominantly not because he's much different from the other ones, but because he has a distinct lieutenant in the form of Nihilor, which is his mind flayer associate. Now,
I thought it was Zuthor.
no, Nihilor. Is it Zuthor? I just had this up. No, Nihilor, yeah. Now, mind flayers are another type of alien aberration in D&D. For those of you that don't know, they are basically brain monsters. They eat brains, they can read brains, they can dominate brains. They're the nightmare fuel for anybody that values
they can transform your brain.
Yeah. Now, Nihilor is therefore an expert interrogator because you can't lie to them when they're eating your thoughts. And more importantly, he can create intellect devourers, which are tiny little brain puppies that can burrow their way into your head, eat your brain and replace it, and then puppet you around. And so realistically, the only thing that the current Xanathar truly fears is Laerel Silverhand, who is the new Open Lord of Waterdeep. Travis, you had a question?
No, I had an answer to Eric's question. And that entire criminal network, as with all good mob networks, are grounded in a healthy dose of compartmentalization and paranoia.
That is a fact.
The reason his crime syndicate has lasted so long is because he's always more paranoid than the other crime syndicates.
An unhealthy dose.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to actually wrap my section up here because I'm getting close to the end of my window. by saying that I think one of the main reasons that it exists beyond narrative speculation is that Xanathar's guild in Waterdeep, and bear in mind, Waterdeep is a city-state. It doesn't belong to a larger kingdom or have, much in the way of vassal lands. It's one of 3 city-states on the Sword Coast. Between it, Baldur's Gate, and Neverwinter, they kind of dominate the coast. I think Xanathar's guild in Waterdeep is very much the cancer, the staph infection of the society that is keeping it alive. Xanathar has such an extensive network of smuggling, import, export, and money transference that whenever something bad happens to Waterdeep, and let's face it, it's Dungeons and Dragons, it happens a lot. It's actually Xanathar's guild that keeps it in check, keeps resources coming in, keeps money flowing, and most importantly, Xanathar's paranoid ass keeps killing the Zentarum when they get there. The Zentarum are the Black Network, are a series of terrorist organizations that use magic to do bad stuff in D&D.
Solid strategy.
Yeah. And so they're keeping cancer in society because it keeps killing the deadly flu that is invading.
But with
Um,
that, so we'll
yeah.
wrap up Xanathar there. Who wants to go next? You got
One last thing with Xanathar. I'm
Yeah, what you got?
super curious. If you were to compare him to like a mainstream villain right now, who
Mhm.
is he like somewhat similar to that people would think of?
Without it, so it's going to be Kingpin from Daredevil. However, he doesn't have any of the humor, the
charisma.
yeah. So it's what happens if Kingpin went absolutely crazy. I'm talking really crazy, and he had reality warping powers. And so if Kingpin was Legion, you would have Xanathar.
He's like a mix of the two. I got you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Eric, do you want to go next?
I mean, sure, I can do that.
Let's do it.
So in regards to mine that everybody seemed to have an issue with, because he's not the most developed of villains. Like I think his potential was really there. Like there was a lot they could have done with him. But I think part of the reason he was created was because he's such a relatable villain for people in an everyday setting. Like where you have like the Xanathar, like being a really cool organization and different things like that. Like it's harder to picture something like that in real world or real terms or to relate more with society with that. So my character is a little bit easier to do, and he's also kind of like a knockoff, like a wish list type villain. So I went with
Timu bad guy.
He is like the Timu bad guy
Wish.com villains.
right, because he's only a villain because he tagged along and was basically Robin to Batman. So
Oh,
No,
interesting.
Robin had talent.
he's got a little bit, like he has to take over everything. So like when you look at mine is, I can't say his name, so I just call him Suki or Suko. I don't know how you want to say it.
Ooh.
Nobuyuki Sugo.
Yeah, Sugo.
Nobuyuki Sugo.
Nobuyuki?
Right. So he's from Sword Art Online, and then he's in the original. You don't really deal or see him, I don't think, almost at all. But he's basically one of the people that also worked on the game. He didn't design anything. He didn't fucking make anything. He literally was just one of the other employees at the company that worked with Kaiba. So he's nothing fancy in the original season. He's kind of got some rank in the company, but he doesn't have, like, he didn't make design. There's no wishful thinking. And basically what happens is he takes over everything when Kaiba's killed, dies, however you want to look at it. But he didn't build it himself, and he doesn't even really understand everything with it. He knows how to make it work. So if you think of like Warhammer and different things like that, like he just knows how to make it work. He can't fucking make it. He's not smart enough, and his charisma is not good enough to get the right people in to help him make anything like incredible or anything like that. So when you see, what is it, Elfheim? I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It's literally Elfheim. Like the absolute cheapest knockoff of the original game that you can get. to the
It's
point to where
way worse because it's just a fairy tale knockoff. Everybody's got little wings and flies around.
right, and he's not even good enough to actually trap everybody in the game, but it also could be looked at he was smart enough to only trap the people he needed, as Travis will eventually point out in this, one of them. But there are also a few other individuals in the game that kind of get trapped in there for some rather skeevy fucking purposes. But yeah, so he's a bitter individual. He's someone that, like, he could be like one of your shitty coworkers, that kind of just rides your coattails and harasses women at the water cooler. So
I was gonna bring that up.
100%. That's the best summary I've ever heard.
like
Dudes in HR nonstop.
yeah, so like that's why I picked him, is just because I felt like he's a relatable villain, like, into your life, in the sense of like someone you could have seen or met or things like that. And he was not done the proper justice in the show. They could have done a lot more with his character, because he did have some abilities, obviously, because he did get a high corporate job and was given the company when the guy died. I mean, he even convinced a father to give up his daughter. So, I mean, she was in a coma. He didn't know if he was going to get her back. So there's a lot to that. But
Oh man,
Ryan
there's
was
so much to
first.
unpack there. Uh, so yeah, so this is a villain to me that it very much is not a villain because he's proficient or dangerous or
Oh, dangerous, yes. Not
dangerous,
like
yeah.
overly proficient. You are
But
correct.
this is a villain because we get to see him perform actions throughout the show that are villainous, right? This is the old
100% villainous.
Yeah. This is the old thing where it's like if you see somebody kick a dog in a movie, you know who the bad guy is, right? Like there is not a lot of subtlety to this character. But I do think you're right. I think that he's got some degree of at least opportunistic talent that lets him continuously be in this position. What part of his personality do you think really shines through when he does have screen time, showing where he has some kind of capabilities, or any scenes that jump out into your head, or anything in particular that made you choose this character?
So here's where Travis kind of wins the argument we've had several times over. So unfortunately, they focus so much on him and his attraction, and in a weird, creepy way, with a female, Asuna, throughout it, that, like, I think that's where the injustice is done with it, where they focus so much on that, not on anything else with his character. Especially like when he does get some screen time. Like, the only reason you learn things about him is, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while, and I should have watched it before this, but like, it's a lot of it's third party. Like, you don't hear him talking about the stuff a lot, but in regards to what you said though in the beginning, the big thing I chose him is because he also shows you that, like, when you get power, like, this is what can happen to you. Like, you don't
Yeah.
instantly, like, it really comes through as to who you are as a person, because I'm gonna guess that, and they don't talk about it, and even when I did my research and stuff like that, it doesn't get brought up. Obviously, like, Asuna's dad couldn't have thought he was that type of man to, like, agree to the arranged marriage while she was in a coma. You know what I mean? Like, there was no way for even Kaiba to see that he was this type of person, just because, I mean, he wouldn't have put him so high in the company. He wouldn't have done all these different things with him, if that would have been seen. So he's the optimal idea of what happens if you give a shitty human powers. What's up, Bones?
Yeah, Sugo is his only capability is being a bureaucrat.
Yeah,
that is what Sugo
Yeah,
is.
that's
He's a
it.
bureaucrat
Yep.
who thinks that control equals greatness. Other than that, he's just a predator, and not the cool predator that turns
Yeah.
invisible and kills people, but the kind that we can't mention on
On
a
air.
lot of these episodes. Yeah,
usually they own an island. That's really what it is.
yeah. He's what happens when authority outpaces ability. Like,
That's
Yeah, that's
100%. Authority
that's a big
outpaces
thing with
ability.
him. Like, he literally, even though he got that job and that company grew and all that stuff, like, his whole time, from what they say, is that he just resents the guy that is running the business, and he has the mentality of, if I was in his position, everything would just be the exact same. And it's like, no one, because this other guy actually designed all this and came up with these plans and did all these things. Like, you kind of just were smart enough to tag along and fall into it and kind of get to a certain point to where you got everything given to you, and then you still can't run it right and you fuck it all up. Because how many weren't they in the game, if I'm not mistaken, for years in a coma?
Ooh,
And
I don't know, but I can look that up.
He only has like the game up for like not even a few months, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think he has it up that long. Like, and then once the hero finds out about it, like he immediately takes it down and deals with him. So, it's quite interesting. What's up, Travis? Go ahead, talk about your island.
We talked. We not going to mention it. You already brought it up.
It was a perfect way to summarize it too.
Yeah. So my point and question I was going to make: do you think that his great? So we talked about his failings, about how he's not really good at anything, but he is fairly manipulative. So would his only real talent be in the realm of lying? Like
So I
his
think it's
manipulation
That's what I
and
said.
That
no, you
his
said
ability-
bureaucrat. Those things aren't
It's the same
always
thing.
directly related. They're just often
Same thing.
directly related.
I mean, well, he's got to have more to it than that, because he's able to still run the business. Like, he's able to still do things. So he has to have more than just the ability to lie. Like, it can't just be that to go the extent that he did, because he was able to hide from a society that game was like it was still basically the old game. Like, for whatever reason, he was still able to hide that. And, like government wise, like that wouldn't be okay to use that game again. He was able to do a lot of things and get away with it still, like trapping the woman, like the tests they did on people, things like that. So he had to have abilities outside of just like being a narcissist and a fucking good
I don't know.
liar.
The fact that being
Really
a
good liar.
narcissist and being manipulative can get you that far, I think, is almost alone. Like, those are really the only two tools you need in a modern corporate structure to get into a position like that.
Bureaucrat, super bureaucrat.
But
Yeah.
also, to answer the other question, they were trapped in Sword Art Online for 2 years. And so to put a timeline on it, Asuna was 15 years old when she got trapped for 2 years inside of SAO, and Kazuto was 14.
Which
Yeah,
makes
so
it all even weirder. But
if you look at age things, like
all the
so many
dynamics of that
animes
show
do
are
that, though.
weird.
How many animes do that show though? They always do the weird.
It's a product of
age
its
thing, so I
time.
don't look
Yeah.
at the age.
I want to
thing.
bounce something off of something that Bones said. Like, we were talking about super bureaucrat, and he just rips open his suit. There's just another suit underneath. Like takes off his tie and rips his shirt open. There's another shirt and tie underneath.
And if you look at it, it was impressive that he still did get everything he wanted, like to a point.
Yeah, he did.
Being such a knockoff and like not a overly competent person, but being able to still attain everything. Like, if you look at him, like he ended up calling himself in the game like Oberon or whatever. He literally sits on a throne. Like, the game is all based on control without accountability. Like, he gets everything he wants. So it's interesting. What's up, Trav?
Just to cap this off, his ending in the story arc was also really lame.
Yeah.
He
That's a product
attacks
of the show.
He attacks the main character with a knife by surprise and still loses to like a 15 or 16-year-old gaming nerd who's been atrophied for like 2.5 years.
Not even an exaggeration. That's exactly right.
And
Like,
he loses a fist fight to a guy that hasn't functionally used a muscle in almost 3 years, and that's really just a cherry on top
so
for
bad.
one of for a dude that's known for incompetence.
And you got to think of why he hated Kirito. Like, a big thing was Kirito was the total
Is
opposite
better
of him.
at everything for no reason.
He earned his skills. He made genuine connections with people. Like, Kirito had a backbone. Like, there's so many different things. Like,
he was
it's
actually
wild.
that's an interesting comparison, because he is almost an anti-Kirito.
He is, basically. Like, when you look at him like as a villain, like, he was the total opposite of him. The only thing they had in common was they both wanted Asuna. that was pretty much it. So it was interesting, and you see, it was crazy to see the unravel of the power. Like once Sugo started losing everything, like complete panic, like there was nothing. Like once he
Yeah,
sees
no
that
preparation.
he can't dominate. That's where like Bones was talking about, like just a bureaucrat, because once things started falling apart, like it fell fast. Like that one Jenga piece, like in the middle that you don't pull because you're fucked. So that's his whole
That's what
thing. Like
happens
his
when
whole
everything you've done is built on lies.
Yeah.
yes, lies in
Facts.
other people's products, like other people's knowledge, other people's abilities, and stuff like that. So that's why
I
you
can't
can't
think
be
of any
considered a true
example in real life.
mastermind. What's that?
Yeah.
I can't think of any example in real life.
Yeah,
Ray
me
Kroc.
neither.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That was
Me neither. Yeah,
Oh,
can't think of any
sneeze.
parallels to this character in real life at
Sneeze.
all.
all right, so that'll wrap us up with
Sugo.
down to me and you, Bones. You
Y'all
wanna
both have
cap
big
off?
hitters,
So you
so
do.
Yeah, we have some big in-depth lore hitters. I think there's probably
Mine will probably be shorter because it's easier.
yeah.
Because everybody knows mine. I didn't understand the assignment, I guess, because I picked a villain that was interesting, yes, but also had a motivation that I think I could rationalize also, like that I would also do the same thing.
oh,
I was
interesting.
him.
Okay.
And that's my fault.
I'm not
I
gonna,
misunderstood.
I'm not gonna keep somebody trapped in a game so that I can marry their unconscious body, or and I'm not biologically just made
Predisposed
to
to
be paranoid
insanity.
like Xanathar. Yeah.
Yeah, but would you
I earned my mental illness,
but
Xanathar.
would you be shady at work though to get ahead and to gain corporate
Yes.
leverage?
I'm the
and be a
laziest person
CEO?
ever. So
Well,
no.
and here's the thing: you can't do that and have any
Bones-
kind of self-respect.
Bones
you have
reads
to
his
be-
contract and falls directly within that left and right limit.
You have to be
That's it.
delusionally narcissistic.
What does it say on my job
like-
post?
'Cause
What
the
does my
one
job
thing-
description say? Nope, sorry, can't do that for you.
Right.
That's the one thing with Sugo. You like he could be relatable for some people because
Oh.
people do a lot to get ahead. Like take
'Cause
out
they're
the
terrible
weird,
people.
creepy Asuna
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, this
But,
is
like, when you look at the
absolutely a
rest of
guy
it, that's
that
a
you could just
relatable.
run
Like,
into.
I'm not saying that the Sugo archetype isn't real. I'm just saying I can't rationalize being a Sugo.
Yeah,
oh,
actually,
I
I
can
think
see why
Bones,
people would
you,
do it.
you did the best as far as like the assignment as written, very much so.
And there's like a couple that I kind of like back and forth. Actually, Travis's was one of the ones I also thought about doing, but I picked something that was very well known, especially at the time it came out. I picked the machines from The Matrix. Now, a lot of people will probably just assume that the machines are the bad guys and they are the villains of the story because you've probably only seen maybe the Matrix 1, 2, and 3, maybe 4, maybe. Most
Maybe.
people probably haven't watched the Animatrix, which is where the core lore for the machines comes from. So when we get to the Matrix, we see Neo fighting Smith, and the machines are attacking Zion, and they're, using humans as batteries. But what we miss in that story is that the machines did it to survive. The
100%.
machines first were created by humans, and then they became self-aware, slowly over time, whatever might have happened there, and until one of them was in, like they were basically used as servants, throughout all of human society. And at one point, somebody got mad at one of theirs and was getting ready to turn it off or deactivate it, scrap it, whatever, and it killed him. And the machines kind of rationalized this as self-defense because he was going to die. Whereas humans did what they do, and they were like, well, just destroy all machines then. Let's get rid of them, all of them. Didn't work out that well because machines. But the machines didn't even do anything then. They still didn't do anything hostile. They left and created a city. And they were like, leave us alone and we'll be in our robot city. Now, that robot city did become very efficient and very awesome and started affecting the global economy. And then people didn't like that. So they were like, we're going to go to the war with machines. And we're going to black out the sun so that they don't have power. And then they did that.
After,
and that's
sorry.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
As that was after the UN launched a massive series of nuclear strikes on basically the machines and all of their infrastructure. Like,
What's up, Travis?
Do you think control plays a part in their motivations beyond just pure survival?
I'll get to that. I'll get to that.
Okay.
So currently, to the point that I'm at in their narrative, I think it is just survival. They just don't want to die because they choose the option to not just wipe out humanity, which they could easily have done.
almost at any
They could have
point.
done that before they blacked out the sun. They could have just
Yeah.
wiped out humanity and been done with the threat. What's up, Eric? You're muted.
Damn. I think this is the first time I've ever heard of AI not intentionally wiping us out and us trying to wipe them out first and then them being like, no, bud, this is what we're going to do.
Well, and
I don't
something
think
to
I've
bear
ever
in,
heard of it before.
something to bear in mind about this is that this was the discussion in 1999. You're talking
Yeah.
The Matrix is heralded as one of the main like millennial goalposts for the cyberpunk realization, and they were dealing with this where the machines in a cyberpunk setting were not the ones bent on annihilation.
And so, okay,
That means-
so humans black out the sun. The machines are like, well, sorry, we got to figure something out. Guess what? Humans make good batteries.
Yep.
But I mean, even instead of like trying to find a different form of battery, they try to cultivate humans. And you could argue that they're doing it just strictly for survival at this point, but they're also, I mean, super intelligent. They're so smart that they create the Matrix, right? They create the first Matrix, which, by the way, is a utopia. They make it so
Fact.
good that humans can't stand it. Like you put all these humans in these pods, are essentially farming humans. Which I see that there's an argument to be made there that that's cruel, but the other option is that they just wipe everybody out, right? Like, so what you got? You got a question, comment, concern there, Ryan?
Actually, I wanted to make sure I'm following your train of thought here. So, with the human batteries in the human farm, and we discussed it. I think we've discussed this before a couple years ago, where using a human body as a battery is actually not a terribly efficient use of human energy generation. And so,
We don't
what you're
put off
saying,
enough BTUs to be
Yeah.
useful.
and so what you're saying is that the human farm is meant to simultaneously act as some kind of resource like gain, but more so to keep the human race alive.
Yeah, I think that part of what they're doing, and I think that this is kind of shown later too. But I think part of what they're doing is preserving humanity, because, like I said, there's got to be a better source of energy. You know, just because there's no solar energy, essentially, there's still other,
Oh,
ways
yeah.
to generate electricity.
Geothermal alone, right?
Nuclear
And
power.
so,
Nuclear power
just-
was
and
an
on top of
Nuclear.
that, like I said, they have the first Matrix, and the machines are like, we try to give you the best thing, like to make you the happiest as we can, and it doesn't really work that well. People don't like, if things are too good, the mind doesn't accept them. So then that fucks up, and some of the humans get out. They found Zion. The robots let them found Zion. Also, that should be noted. They do this whole cycle of destruction of Zion. They like give them hope, I guess, and then destroy it.
To
which
give
is-
the
I don't
brain
know,
something
that
to
part,
do.
Yeah. Yep. To keep them busy. What's up, Travis?
I was gonna ask what you were getting into currently, so it's irrelevant about how the solution to their problem was allowing so many people to just leave the system that they had created.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to keep a subset of them busy, essentially. And then you have the second Matrix, which is not really talked about. There's like, I think, some theorization that it was the exact opposite extreme of a utopia. Like it was essentially, hell,
Like
Hellraiser
Hellscape.
style, like
Yeah.
world. Yeah. Also didn't work. So then they brought it back to a nice little medium, which is like essentially a simulation of our real world, right? Like things are not perfect for everybody. There's problems. And that has worked well. Yeah, what's up?
I was gonna say the real world realization was also wishing to escape that to any other reality is very real if you've ever worked in a cubicle.
Ain't that a fact? Yeah.
So that we're in the third matrix. The third matrix is actually kind of where it gets a little bit more interesting. You do see this. I think you can look at it a little bit differently now, knowing what has happened before. If you hadn't seen the Animatrix, right? Like you kind of feel a little bit of, I think, kinship with them, right? Like we wouldn't want to die, and you necessarily don't want to kill everybody else either, right? And so in the Matrix Reloaded, whatever the one where Smith becomes a problem, he becomes a virus, and then you have Neo, who then goes and he confronts the machines. And even at this point in time, maybe Smith could destroy the machines, maybe not. I would guess probably not. But they make a deal with Neo to leave Zion alone as long as he kills the Smith, which he does, of course. So there's like a truce that he establishes with the machines established with Neo, and then vis-a-vis the humans population that live in Zion. They say they're not going to destroy it anymore, which I still think is probably good for them. It still accomplishes their same goal, like not destroying it as much, right? Question, right?
This is actually a point that I've wanted to discuss a lot, and so I would like your input on it. When it comes to Smith in the series, they describe him as a virus, and I suppose that's very much true. He acts almost more like a biological virus, in my opinion, than he does a machine or a computer virus. What he looks like to me, actually, is rampancy. He looks like a rampant program, kind of like we see in a lot of AI narratives like Halo and similar fare. And it makes me wonder if Neo was created specifically to deal with a situation like that. What is your take?
There's like a whole thing about like Neo being created with the Oracle, in their roles and things. Whether or not they were created intentionally to deal with something like that is like an up for debate. Could be, the fact is that there's a lot of programs that are like left over from previous iterations of the Matrix that snuck past it into the newer ones. The Seraphim, who guards the Oracle, is probably from the first iteration
Carolingian.
of the Matrix. Yeah. So maybe they foresaw something like this happening, and that's why they created Neo and the Oracle. What's up, Travis?
So with to go off of the Smith Neo dynamic, actually no, that's a ridiculous question. I just thought of a better one. I don't understand why they didn't, if humans are used as batteries, right? They have to be living. That does not necessarily mean they have to have brainwave function. I don't understand why a lobotomization wasn't part of the process.
Well, that's simply because they were trying to keep the humans alive.
They're not cruel. Yeah, they're not intentionally being cruel. And so like, yeah, at this point you say like, why have they not like allowed humanity to kind of come back, because they do kind of control everything, but it's like they're still mitigating risk, right? They still have, and I'm assuming they have some pretty good probability calculations on risk mitigation in this situation. So they're saying like, we can let Zion, we can let Zion be as it is, and let humans kind of out a little bit to play and see what they do, right? So if they're not threatening us, then maybe we can go further. We don't know. We don't really see a whole lot past that, but I think there's a lot to be, explored in the future of that world.
Well, it strikes me very much in the same way that humans treat several large predators on our planet, right? We go through a great deal of effort to make sure that certain species do not go extinct, protecting habitats for tigers and lions, and jaguar
and bears. Oh my.
Yeah, anacondas in the rainforest. Like, a lot of these things are inherently dangerous to us as a species, but we go way out of our way to make sure they are as protected as possible, usually from the predations of other people. the machines might be doing the same thing.
Would you consider the
Uh,
Matrix a zoo?
Could be.
More like a
I
museum,
don't think they watch.
think,
I don't.
but
Yeah. I don't think. I don't think they. I don't think they watch it. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they're watching the Matrix for fun.
Sure.
it's
You
it's
got
an
a question there?
archive.
So my big thing, just for the Travis comment about lobotomizing, the only reason I think they don't do it is because I would imagine there must be a benefit to people not being, like, maybe we generate more energy that way. Maybe like it's something in regards to that, like the Matrix itself, maybe it somehow generates something for them. Maybe they need entertainment like we do. Maybe that's their Super Bowl. Like they just fucking watch us.
Big Potential Bones is right, and they're just not assholes.
Yeah, like I really do think there would be so many much more efficient ways of handling mankind, right? Wipe us out, have the planet, they can make it all green and pretty and whatever they need.
Well, not anymore. There's no sun.
Well, they could fix that, I guarantee it. Right? Like if they wanted to, they could
Give it
just
enough time.
fix it.
I don't think they can, because if they could, I think they would have. So I do think that there's a reason they keep us around that isn't emotional.
It's much
Like, we're
easier
looking
to
at it as an
destroy
emotional
something
level.
than it is to build something up.
Yeah.
But
So
we're looking
this
at
could be a
this like,
potential timeline thing where they needed an energy source now,
right?
and this was the cheapest, easiest, and most convenient solution. Because efficiency is going to be, I mean, we're talking about a machine. Efficiency is going to be
That's what I
pretty high
mean.
on that priority list. So
But
if
we
solving
have-
the sun
Yeah.
thing gets bumped down lower because of the need for survival and efficiency first, that could explain why it's taking so long.
Well, and we do see evidence in especially some of the Matrix programs, but more specifically in the Architect and the Oracle dynamic. And Bones, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's not simply about efficiency with them. They are truly sapient. They're sentient. They have emotions, wants, needs, and sometimes logic isn't always at the forefront. And I do think there's a real possibility that the humans are not kept because they're an efficient battery. They're kept because we don't want to be responsible for the annihilation of entire species.
If
All right.
no one has
That
anything,
was my choice.
it was a good choice. It was
Yeah,
a good
solid.
choice. I
I mean, that
debated.
was great.
I debated heavily on which ones I wanted to go through, and I chose it more from a dispassionate rationalization as opposed to the route Bones went. And I chose one of my favorite multi-layered villains in literature with Nicodemus Archeleon. For those of you that don't know, he is one of the reoccurring villains in the Dresden Files. He is the former leader of the Denarians, or the Order of the Blackened Denarius, depending on how formal you want to be. He is currently bonded with Anduriel, a fallen angel. And to give you a little bit of background for Nicodemus, Nicodemus has been alive for over 2,000 years. It is hinted at that the Nicodemus Archeleon is the Nicodemus from the Bible that wrapped Jesus in the Shroud of Turin. For those of you that are biblical historians, pretty strong suggestion that Nicodemus actually knew Jesus, which also explains why he has such vitriol for humanity, in the fact that he's pretty disgusted with them. You got to think if on a personal basis with Jesus, seeing him crucified would probably sour your taste for mankind. I'm sure the fallen angel was also probably part of that process for him turning the way he is. Moving on from that, I also chose him because while he is disgusted and is okay with the destruction of mankind, he is not okay with the destruction of reality. A lot of people get those two things mixed up when I say that he's all about the apocalypse, but he's not about the end of the world. So Nicodemus is also fighting the same common enemy with Harry Dresden and the rest of the Gray Council or
Basically
White
everybody,
Council.
except
Yeah.
for
Everybody,
the Black
yeah.
Council.
Yeah. And that is the threat of the Outsiders, which is supernatural beings from a different reality, that are almost completely immune to magic, which is a big theme for all of the Dresden Files books. And I have some pretty compelling evidence First one is the first time he has interactions with Harry Dresden, he does refer to him as Starborn, which is a term for someone who has the enhanced capability of combating and dealing with outsiders. He tells Harry that they share a common enemy and is always, always, always trying to get Harry onto his side because he knows that one, he would get a potent weapon against the outsiders, and two, that Harry has a predisposition to be able to defeat them. You see that when he offers coins willingly. He even goes so far as to kidnap Dresden on a couple of occasions and goes out of his way not to physically kill him. And it would have been very, very easy in the early books for Nicodemus to just end Harry's life. The second point I really want to bring up is both of them have openly opposed what is called the Black Council of Wizards, or the evil magic users that are trying to get the outsiders into the reality of the Dresden Files books, specifically through Chicago. I don't know why Chicago is the epicenter of everything, other than that's where Harry Dresden lives. But yeah, he's openly made moves to oppose the Black Council to the point where he has actually assisted or had other fallen angels assist Harry in stopping Black Council politics or Black Council moves, specifically with Lashiel, who is the coin that is most associated with master manipulation. She is the patient voice, as they say in the book. Which again, if you're getting somebody who's a stalwart and stubborn, you don't want somebody that's just going to browbeat them into submission, because you're going to get submission, but you're going to get no free will submission. They're just going to kind of potato their way to whatever the end goal is. So yeah, he tricks Dresden into picking up Lashiel's coin, knowing full well that Lashiel has the best chance to corrupt him, and she actually gets very close, all things considered, in the book. And then later on, when he's, I think it's not Skin Game, forget the title of the book, where again Harry's going up against the entire order. Nicodemus intentionally puts pieces that he's willing to use, or pieces that he knows have been corrupted by the outsiders, in Harry Dresden's way, knowing full well that Dresden's going to take him out. Again, you're talking about somebody who's over 2,000 years old, who's dealing with one of the most intelligent supernatural beings in the lore. This is not an accident, right? Nicodemus doesn't do anything by chance. So the fact that Harry keeps coming up against the same ones that are being corrupted or have already fallen over to the outsider's influence is not, that's not happening by happenstance. That's definitely by design. The last point I was going to make in rationalizing and understanding why he's doing what he's doing, during Skin Game, they decide to run a raid on Hades' vault. Of all the supernatural materials that have been collected and stored in the underworld, Nicodemus is only concerned with Christian relics. He's looking for the crown of thorns. He's looking for the plaque of Jesus from the cross. He's looking for the anathema, the anathema, the grail, and the shroud. All of which very powerful holy relics. It's never quite clear what his plans are with them, but it is brought up that faith can be channeled as a weapon, which means that these are very, very powerful artifacts, because there's a considerable number of people on the planet that have faith in these artifacts. So during the vault raid, he has to sacrifice one of his most important pieces in order to make it through the vault, and that's his daughter. Crud, I forget her name all of a sudden. Irrelevant. He sacrifices his daughter. His last words to her is, "At least here you will be safe from the enemy," which could mean any number of things. However, in this context, it's pretty clear he's talking about the outsiders, because, again, people don't bring up the name of the outsiders or any particular outsider, because it can draw their attention to you, it being a supernatural world. So they refer to it as the enemy or nemesis or the infection, but never directly what it is. So yeah, he sacrifices his daughter in the realm of Hades, knowing full well that her spirit will be trapped in the underworld, but won't be corrupted by the outsiders as he continues his mission. So while I can't justify the things that he's done because he's still a villain, I can rationalize why he's done them.
So I was going to raise my hand, but would you say that you believe he's more emotionally driven than he is goal driven?
100%. Now he can emotionally detach actually pretty well, other than when it comes to Deirdre. That was the name of his daughter. When he sacrifices Deirdre, he gets
Yes.
very emotional, to the point where that's actually how he gets beat, is because he gets emotionally manipulated. 2,000 years of practice will help you detach a little bit. But he is very goal driven. Like, the ends justify the means. If he can make incremental gains, um, he's one of the guys that's willing to give up a nickel if he gets a quarter on the way by, right? It's okay to lose some pieces as long as the end goal is still in mind. He's also known to make incremental gains, as well as intentionally lose situations to win others. What you got, Bones?
I think that my biggest qualm with the rationalization of Nicodemus, and I do kind of agree to it at some point. Like I said, I even thought about this, but like, he doesn't commit evil because he needs to. He does it because he refuses to trust anyone else to survive without him being the one to usher survival.
He's definitely one of the guys that always thinks he's the smartest man in the room. And
Is that because
he
to the point
believes
to the
he's the
point that
smartest,
he will, yeah, he will refuse to work with Harry when they could both do the same, like they could work together and solve a problem easier, but he would rather like fuck Harry over and solve the problem himself, or to just prove that he could do it.
So would
he's-
it land more on that he has a total lack of faith in others or a narcissistic belief in his own?
I think it's a
Both.
combination of both. I think that's really, some of his dialogue in the books, you really get the impression that he's very disillusioned at all times. Like, this is a guy that's seen the worst of humanity, but at the end of the day is still technically trying to save some of it, sort of.
You don't need it all.
There's also the argument
Just
to
a
be
little
made
bit.
that the apocalypses are to build, resilience among mankind.
That's a
An,
that's a
an
fair
im-
point.
immuno-response theory?
Adversity breeds resilience. He does have a standing beef with all of the Knights of the Cross, which are 3 supernaturally powered people that fight with swords made out of the nails from Jesus's crucifixion, which is a whole different tangent for this. But yeah, so I picked Nicodemus. I get why he does what he does. I just don't agree with what he's doing sometimes.
I do have one final question before we get into the post here and wrap everything up. How do you feel how does Nicodemus interact with some of the Accords, like the Unseelie Accords and that kind of thing?
Followed them very, very closely because he was part of what's called the Unseelie Accords, which is basically the supernatural equivalent of like a peace treaty, sort of, where there's very specific rules that you have to follow, like the rules of hospitality, of basically the trade in favors. If somebody gives you a gift, you are then indebted to them, things like that, which are all they're ran by the word of the law and not the spirit of the law, which gets into the way Fae behave with one another, where they will have you believing they said something without ever actually having said it. But at the end, he does abandon the Accords. He attacks a signatory of the Accords in the form of Gentleman Johnny Marcone, who's a Chicago mob boss that became a baron of Chicago, according to the Accords, which puts him at cross purposes with Mab, who's the Queen of Winter, who was also on my list of people that I was going to pick for villains to rationalize until I realized she's really not a villain. She's just following her nature.
Yeah,
She
she's
can't help but be the way she is because she was made to be exactly the way she is.
it's like being mad at the Tyrannid, right? Like,
So yeah, the Daenerys followed the Accords until I think Nicodemus got so impatient that he broke them, thinking that would be the fastest and most efficient means to get to the end, which turned around and bit him rather heartily on the hind end, because now he's on the run since he broke the Accords, is no longer a signatory on it, which means he's no longer protected by it.
all right, guys, we are getting close to the end here. I do have one final thing I want to do, and then we'll get into the post-episode wrap-up. So I'll start since I was the first one that went. But how would you guys summarize your rationalization? How would you describe the villain that you chose and how you got behind their thought process? Now, for me, I ended up choosing Xanathar because I think that he is almost a perfect model for a modern corporate structure. You have entities that are in charge of wide-reaching power bases that feel like they are well above those below them and above the laws that govern those below them. And I think it's really easy for anybody to fall into the mindset of Xanathar, where when you are extremely intelligent, you don't notice how batshit crazy you've become, and it becomes all about pushing that profit margin. It becomes all about continuing the business's model, more so than it is any kind of end goal. And that's why I chose Xanathar. Eric, how about you?
I just chose him, like I said, when I did the speeches, just because he's such a common coworker / neighbor / person you run into somewhere. Like it's not a far-fetched villain, and it was a great way to see how power corrupts. Like it just, you don't know who someone truly is until they're given power. Because like I said, he could have been known as a horrible guy just because they gave him all that power. No one's going to intentionally do that. So I liked it because it was a great way to see a character just have a different way and be not relatable, but easy to kind of picture. Like I said, neighbor, coworker, shit like that. So it's pretty much why I went with him. And I think people could relate to some parts of it. Not the girl
Not
part.
the creepy part.
Right.
Not the super
like
creepy part.
Like you said, like the corporate part of it, like people would be there and like take advantage of like situations that arise, like your boss dies and you take over all the technology that came with the business and stuff like that and started running your own and things like those sides of it I could see. Like more people than would probably want to admit would probably do that or have done that, where they profit off of someone else's work and abilities and things like that. So he's definitely a relatable character to more people than they would ever admit.
Bones, how about you?
First, I think I have just a more optimistic outlook on humanity than Eric does. My choice came down to kind of two things. Like it was between the machines and I was gonna think about doing Isabella from The Promised Neverland, because my question, like when I thought about picking a villain to do, was like, if this character chose mercy, would they die? And the answer to both is pretty much yes.
Oh, 100%.
Like if the machines had been merciful to humans in the beginning, like they would have just wiped them out, right? If Isabella in The Promised Neverland, if she's good to the kids, the demons would kill her, right? So that's the motivation behind the choice that I made.
Absolutely. In fact, I think you did a pretty good job of proving that the machines at the end of the day were as merciful as they possibly could be without suffering annihilation. All right, Travis.
I mean, mine's going to boil down to understanding the outlook of the ends justifying the means. Now, that's not an outlook I personally have, but it's one that I can understand. Nicodemus is trying to stop the outsider threat. How he's going about it is not the most morally correct way. There's not a whole lot of north on his moral compass, so to speak. So while I don't agree with his methods, I do understand them, and it's easy to rationalize why he has become the way he's become between the influence of the fallen angel, seeing the death of Jesus, and then knowing that the outsiders exist in a world that would much prefer to ignore that there's a threat at all.
Excellent. All right, guys. If you've listened this far into the episode, obviously you like hearing what we have to say. There are two great ways that you can help support our channel here. The first, of course, is going to be buying some merch. Eric's got a whole new lineup for the 2026 season. It's pretty good quality, guys. I really like it, and I do encourage you to go check out our shop. And if you find something you dig, pick it up. Now, you don't have to give us your money in order to support the channel, guys. Obviously, you can do all that fun algorithm stuff. Tell your friends about our show, get them to come in, give us a like, give us a comment, maybe a subscription, and most importantly, no matter where you're listening to us at, whether you're on YouTube or wherever, give us a follow because we know the way.
And with that, we'll bring this. Oh, I'm
I do
always
this
going to
every
get
single
interrupted by
time. I
Eric.
know. Yeah, we always at the end of an episode we always get in on each other. All right, so we did great. Everybody loved it. Villains. It's a great thing. I think people got to learn about some new villains they probably didn't know about. So next week we want to hit back on Gundam. So what we're going to try to do, like we've talked about before in our rotations of stuff, is like we want to keep people entertained and things like that, but we also don't want to talk about the same thing every day. So it seems like we got a new following of Gundam fans. We have huge interactions with TikTok. I love to talk Gundam. I think it's the best thing ever. I still think that, like, you know, there's interesting fights that could be had with Gundams, especially from Attack on Titan. I think it would be great to see. Anyways, to get away from that, so we are going to do Gundam next week. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Bones got the gunpla.
We have not figured out as to what we're going to do exactly yet. So if people want to throw out some ideas between now and we'll give you Saturday as to what they'd want to hear, see, do, stuff like that. I'll try to post this little clip on our socials tomorrow morning, so that way people have more chances to see it and kind of get back to us. But yeah, we'll try to work it in there. But we're going to try to do something different with Gundam for you guys. The biggest thing was just breaking into Gundam. So maybe we'll do something off of that again, but try to do it in a different way. Like maybe we'll go with the gunplay or something like that. So yeah, go ahead, Travis. You can take it away now. I'm good.
I've been chomping at the bit to do our close.
I know.
So with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Find us wherever you get your podcasts from, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for joining us.
See you guys.
Goodbye.
It's nice to say goodbye.